I can promise you, most guys don't know how to convert their views into leads because they don't have a way to deplatform users. A lot of guys who are advertising for leads, but then they're creating podcasts and they're like, oh, but the podcast isn't bringing leads. The podcast is used just to reinforce your beliefs. So people check and ask, did you pass the robot test? Yes or no? Listen to your podcast. They don't understand where to go next. We've ran in different markets a lead magnet, which is 2025 real estate trends or commercial/residential, whichever one they're in. We are just putting in the foundation right now. Right. That does not mean that the work does not stop, basically, at that point.
Yeah, I think that's one of the hardest things is getting agents to just pick up the phone and ring them, because so many agents are conditioned to expect the phone to ring for them with like Zillow leads, Realtor.com leads, those companies, because they get a phone call in and that was the buyer ready to buy, sell, whatever. And so they're conditioned to just expect the phone to ring. KPR brokers, I think they rank number 1 or number 2 for neighborhoods in Stevens Point. Like they have 10% commission versus like the US is 3%. Well, it's super volatile here.
Is it volatile though? Like it's just consistently high.
Oh, I suppose.
Do you get me? Like it's not actually volatile in the sense that like, oh, like this place has gone up and down. No, yes, you're right, the market could fall out of its ass. I think in the real estate space, you got to understand what is it you're marketing for. Are you doing it for leads? Are you doing it for trust? Are you doing it for authority? Like you need to understand which mode you're operating on.
Before we begin the podcast, I have one small favor to ask. If you could hit the subscribe button so that we could reach more real estate agents every single week. Thank you. Let's begin. Darren, you, sir, are the podcast guy, if you will. And in real estate, podcasts are pretty common. But the problem with it is a lot of real estate agents tend to do the podcast and they just get a ton of leads. They get a ton of people. But they don't know how to take someone from the podcast to becoming a client. What would you say to those people who are just getting a ton of views but no clients?
I would say they're not even getting leads. So we have a ton of real estate podcasts in our portfolio. Multifamily, real estate, residential, pretty much everything, all the way from Sydney to New York, Denver, Colorado, right across America. And I can promise you, most guys don't know how to convert their views into leads because they don't have a way to deplatform users. Because the biggest thing that someone listening to your podcast, they don't understand where to go next. Because it's not like we have an educated buyer who reads a book and thinks, oh, what else do they have on Amazon? That doesn't like happen in the podcast world. The biggest guys who are not even in real estate, these guys don't even have a way to bring people from their podcast to their actual products or services. So that's what we can kind of get into is how do we move them from one universe to another? Because the reality is if you're building a podcast, if you're building a real estate company, it is so complicated for you to try to get all these moving parts where the reality is it's actually 100 times simpler if you just remove all the friction, right? So I think a good way to kind of start is let's look at first what rented audience is. So if you're producing a podcast, number one, you're already ahead of 99% of people, especially real estate agents. But if you are producing a podcast, you're doing that on a rented audience, which is YouTube. So YouTube could just change one tiny thing in the algorithm and your business is obsolete. Same with audio. Audio is a bit more resilient, but Spotify and Apple is still, again, you're one issue away from it all falling apart. What you want to do is move from a rented audience into an owned audience. And that's like your lead magnets, your email list, a way for you to source and hold your leads. So let's just keep it very simple. A lot of real estate agents will use a CRM like HubSpot. They need to be able to bring their leads who listen to the podcast into the universe of HubSpot. But a lead doesn't just appear in HubSpot. You need to give them a reason to go there. So my approach to this, which again, we can get into some of the numbers, we've probably ran up the most amount of numbers in most podcast businesses for this exact reason, which is we give away our highest leverage piece of content we can. So we literally give users their thing, what they want, right? So let me give an example. We've ran in different markets a lead magnet, which is 2025 real estate trends for commercial/residential, whichever one they're in, for the city that they're in. So let's say if it's Denver, Colorado, we'll look at people in Denver and we'll look at, okay, what's the trends in multifamily in 2025? And that's actionable, topical, trending, and relevant. So people want that. And then in that, we basically give them something that they would never be able to get for free elsewhere. Because most of these companies are charging you an arm and a leg for this because they're gated information. But the question you got to ask yourself is, if you can give your ideal client what they actually need for free, what will they pay for implementation? They'll pay anything for implementation because they know that Andrew is the guy that helps you with X, Y, and Z, and they're ready to move to the next stage. This becomes problematic when it's separated. So what you'll often see is you'll see YouTube over here, LinkedIn over here, email over here, and then the question you get or the question we get is, well, where are the leads? And I'll never forget one of the first kind of inflection points for me with this was I kind of thought that people knew this, that you needed to work a deal, work a lead, bring them into a CRM. I just thought that that's what people wanted. Whereas it came really apparent to me when we ran a podcast for quite a long time. It was a sales podcast in 2022, 2023. And we had done a ton of crazy numbers in terms of engagement, growth, audience building, cult building, community building. And the guy turned around to me and said, "This is great, but I can't find the leads." And I said to him, "What do you mean you can't find the leads?" And he was like, "I'm getting all these likes and impressions on LinkedIn and on my podcast, but they're not leads." I'm like, "They are leads. You just need to find a way to interact with them," which can be, DMing, follow-ups, see where they're in a cycle, give them lead magnets, do things basically that majority of people who look at it and think, "Where are my leads?" wouldn't even think of doing.
Right, exactly. And I think that's one of the weirdest disconnects is a lot of agents are trained so much on their sphere of influence where they don't have to nurture them as much because they've already nurtured them by knowing them for so many years. And so there's just a weird disconnect where they're not entirely sure what to do.
Think about it this way. If you actually are someone who has a zone of influence and you're someone who's reputable in your market, would you not want to go another step further with those people? Because let's say they are in your CRM. Let's say they have bought a house from you. If you are Jenny and you want to contact Johnny, can you not touch base every 3 months and be like, "Hey, Johnny, this is the latest report on X. This is the latest update on Y." Put them into a nurturing campaign. Put them into a lead campaign. And it's honestly never been easier. With AI, with all these tools like ConvertKit, MailChimp, whatever you want to use, this is the most scalable way to make the most amount of money you will ever even imagine in your entire life. We have a ton of real estate companies. We also have different industries. All of this shit is just set and forget. You just set it up and then you know that, okay, Mary, we have a ding going off to speak to Mary in 3 months' time. When we go to speak to Mary, we're not going to say, we're not going to knock and say, "Hey, Mary, come buy my stuff." We're going to teach her. We're going to educate her. We're going to give her value. We're going to show her why X real estate company, Y real estate company is the company to work for. And dude, we've been doing this with $250,000 deals down to $250 a week deals. Because customer/prospect has the same buying intention, psychology, interaction, no matter if we're selling $250,000 or $250,000. And I think that's the big kind of unlock that has really changed my framing for it. That's why I think a lot of the information or the limiting beliefs people have around selling and conversion is just not true. Like a lot of it is cope. People will use it as an excuse to say, "Oh, well, LinkedIn didn't work, or the podcast didn't work, or the email sequence didn't work." We had a client with a mutual friend, we had a call with a mutual friend, Brian, who has a real estate company, real estate broker in New York. And we were setting up all the funnels and he was like, "Great, we can see the lead flow now and we're done, right? We're done." And I said, "No, because the reality is we will have to do this process of informing, educating, entertaining, inspiring our leads over and over and over and over again. We are just putting in the foundation right now." Right. That does not mean that the work does not stop, basically, at that point.
Yeah, I think that's one of the hardest things is getting agents to just pick up the phone and ring them. Because so many agents are conditioned to expect the phone to ring for them with Zillow leads, Realtor.com leads, those companies, because they get a phone call in and that was the buyer ready to buy, sell, whatever. And so they're conditioned to just expect the phone to ring. And so you have to build that, okay, these leads are here. We have a pool of them. You just need to grab your net and hook a few. So that's kind of how I explain it. Like, you need to call them to see which ones are going to bite, which ones are going to come. And so back on kind of the nurturing over the course of the years, one of the things that I've found that works really well is super community specific things, because so many agents are in tune with the community. And so what you can do is you can go, this is a list of community events that's coming up, and you can put it on the website. You can put it on a newsletter that they run every month, and it works like a charm because you're educating. It's not necessarily about houses, but it keeps you top of mind. And then when you do that quarterly, it's like that.
You always just need an asset in your corner that most people are not going to be using, right?
Yeah.
So if they're in tune with the community and they know that there's like a granny's bakery of cookies going on a Saturday, like that is actually super important to be in tune to. Like, at least my wife's father works in landscaping. He's familiar with all the community events that go on in the local area. So let's give an example. Like, they do like an over elders fucking something in the sports like ground. He knows what's happening so that he's able to stay top of mind. And also it's just like a conversational thing, because people buy from people who are an authority and who are the best in their space. But also a big question mark that people have is like, do I actually want to work specifically with this person? Do they fit my type of character? Do they fit the traits that I like? Is it someone that I actually just like? Okay. So if you are someone who actually gives a shit about the local area that you're in, or the community that you're in, or the business that you're in, you'll actually just be able to kill it and crush it, right? I think that's kind of been the USP of like my business, is the fact that we edit podcasts, but why is it someone pays us $60K a year? It's because of the fact that I'm in it, that I'm like, hey, this doesn't work anymore. We're going to stop doing that. I know this because I'm in that space and I spent the last 40 hours analyzing it. So I'm able to tell you and educate you and coach you that that is what we're going to do. And then people are like, okay, that's cool. So you don't need to have loads of real estate properties. You don't need to be the best broker. But what you do need to do is just be in tune with the world, right? And I remember one of my mentors said to me about this before, is that when you have clients and when you have customers, you want to be it. So if you are interested and truly interested in what you're doing, you should be sending blog articles, podcasts, LinkedIn posts, YouTube videos, and be like, hey, I saw this and I thought of you. Yeah. Therefore, I sent you this video. And when we have that connection, that actually increases LTV, increases engagement, increases buying intent, it increases everything. Because what you'll often find is buyers have two different types of behaviors. One, you have people that have high intent, so they want to buy, but they don't actually have the funds. They're tire kickers, right? They want to be part of you, they want to work with you, but they can't actually afford you. The other side is completely true too. Someone who is skeptical, highly skeptical, they're an educated buyer, they have a lot of money, but they're skeptical of you. And how do you get around both of those scenarios? Is that you educate, inspire, and also inform people to the point that they will become someone who is able to buy them eventually, right? They move into that category, and you almost create a category. Let me give an example. If people know that luxury real estate in Denver is a thing, it only becomes a thing when you put it in the minds of the buyer. It didn't think about it beforehand. So you can create that. You can create an attitude. You can create a world. You can create an environment that people are like, whoa, I really want to figure that shit out. You know, in my instance in podcasts, we created podcast businesses. Like, we literally created it. It's a term that we invented because most people thought that podcasts couldn't be monetized or they couldn't be used for their business. And our biggest thesis for the past couple of years was, how do we break the belief that you can't turn a podcast into a business and you can't leverage it for your business? So we'll create a term called podcast business, and it's our term. And we just manufactured it. And think about it. Every invention, every unique ability is all invented, right? So you can create that in the environment that you're in, the community that you're in, the business model that you're in.
I mean, it's fundamentally your USP, your unique selling proposition. Like, what makes you unique?
Yep.
period. So like if you're the only luxury person in said area, that's your unique selling proposition. You're the luxury real estate person. You're the podcast person, right? The podcast business guy, right? So it's what makes you unique, what makes you stand out. And so you have to figure out what that is. Even if it's like, we are the number one brokerage in the area for sales volume. Like that's your unique thing if you can maintain it.
Yes. So a good example is, again, one of our mutual friends, Mitchell O'Flaherty. So again, he's based in New York. He's commercial real estate. His one line is, do you know what it is?
I actually don't.
Brit in the Bronx.
Oh, yeah.
So it's just like a thing he invented, and like it's kind of cool, it's kind of not cool. It doesn't really matter regardless. It's his thing, right? And then people acknowledge him as that. He has the Royal British accent. He shows up to the Bronx. I don't think many British guys are in the Bronx. I don't really know. And it doesn't matter because now 8,000 miles away, I am now talking about that.
Yeah.
Right? That's association. And that's your USP. That's how you just stand out in the market.
That's how you create a brand too.
Yep.
That's an entirely different subject.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the guys in the real estate space who have crushed it, that have built brands, just killed it for that reason. So again, I don't know the real estate space too much, but if you look at like Ryan Pineda, you know, someone like him, he started in real estate and he branched out into entrepreneurship. But again, he was a real estate guy for a long time. Who else? Maybe even like Grant Cardone. Yep. A lot of these guys, even like Trump, right? Like, like he's just like the fucking OG example, right? Love him or hate him. He was known for real estate. Yeah. And he probably did like 50 other things. So I think there's a lot to be said about like when you are building that brand to be super specific in the beginning until you're like an absolute killer. Yep. Right. And especially in real estate because it's just like a bloodbath.
Yeah, I know that's something I personally got wrong when I even started this business. Of like I was very broad. I didn't have the thing. And I know we were talking about
that. We chatted about that. And I was like, you should get rid of 90% of the things you do.
Yeah. And so now it's just SEO for real estate agents.
How have you seen it grow as a result of doing that? Because some people are afraid of specificity.
I'm just better at it in general as well. Yeah. And so like it's simpler. So every client that I bring on, I have these same steps of, okay, we can check this, and get results overnight. Yeah. 2, it creates more of an authority presence because you're so much more consistent with the results. A. B, people don't associate you with 50 different things. They're like, okay, real estate SEO. Okay, this guy. So it creates that super good authority frame. Like, I was talking last night, sales call at 4 a.m. The authority frame there was just that, okay, you do websites for real estate specifically on the lead gen side, so the SEO side. And so it was such a good authority frame that like they were ready to like take out a loan for marketing for us. And so I think that having a very, very strong presence where you can get results is super, super important. Like if you have that in real estate, I know a good example in Stevens Point, there's a guy named Cade Covey, and he's the luxury guy on Facebook. Anyone on Facebook who's looking at luxury properties in the area, it's him. I guarantee it every single time. He gets basically every single deal that's over $450,000 that isn't commercial in the area. And so it's all about that brand presence. How do you frame yourself?
Yeah, for sure. And what's unique there is the fact that, again, you're speaking into all the aspects that I always talk about, which is like when you actually truly are an authority, you'll be able to say no to all the other stuff. So if you are let's say the residential guy, and then someone says to you, oh, like, do you want to go into commercial? You'll know that commercial isn't your thing because you're better at X and Y. Now, that's when like the girl in the red dress pops up and it's like, oh, is that a new opportunity? Should I go over here? Is that a good opportunity to go into? Whereas the reality is you'll get mediocre, if not no results, right? And I've been burnt like that too. We focus on podcasts. We've gone into email. We've gone into ghostwriting. We've gone into, even like IG and TikTok. And it's part of the service, so we don't get affected by it. But it's not like it's my key focus, right? Right. It's not like it's the main focus. Whereas, and I call that like vertical integration. So vertical integration is owning everything within the podcast world. Yeah. If we were to open up a new lever in a new world, that's when things would like, that's a different thing, right? That's just like a different thing. So it's really important to understand where you sit in the world, especially as you get into like, you know, your first 5 deals, 10 deals. Like, some of the feedback I hear, we do some luxury real estate in Dubai. So we run the podcast for them and they do kind of high-end luxury real estate. The biggest feedback I hear about real estate agents is that most guys, because they're commission only, they get a big deal and then they think it's luck and they think they can't redo the process. So as a result of doing that, that's when all the fear and the doubt comes in. But the reality is, if you're creating content, have a single focus, have a single mechanism for a client acquisition, it's invariable that it'll work.
Yeah, you have to go deep, not wide. Like, I always hear that. So like, you have to get really, really good at one thing. I know that's part of the reason I'm only really on LinkedIn, and I even use YouTube kind of. Like, I have the podcast on it. I do the podcast, but my primary focus is LinkedIn.
You've like doubled your growth already.
What was that?
You've basically doubled your growth in the past 6 months.
Yeah. I was at what, 400 followers 6 months ago?
Yeah.
So like, if you just focus on one thing, you can absolutely slam it.
Yeah.
And so it's just get really, really good at that one thing, stick to it for a year, maybe add something else after that year, but you really want to stick to one thing as much as possible.
The reality is you don't actually need a second platform. If you just have one platform and you truly want to dominate that one platform, you don't actually need all the other stuff. You don't need the bells and whistles. You don't need email. You don't even need Instagram. If you are like exceptional at creating YouTube videos and you really focus in on that, you look for the 2, 3, 4x effect of improving it, that will have a 10, 100, 1,000x of an increase. We literally have clients and their videos, like their outlier score is 100x. What do we do? Change a fucking thumbnail, change the title, right? It's not like reinventing the wheel. So that's why when I hear like, oh, like I gotta be everywhere, I gotta be all over the place. You can be everywhere if you have a team. You can be everywhere if you have a team of killers, LinkedIn guys, IG guys, podcast guys. But if you're solo, you don't need to be. Right? And also the fact that YouTube has such a flywheel effect that, you know, in essence, we create podcasts, but we also create YouTube videos, right? So it's the same shit, basically, whether it's a podcast or YouTube video, it's the same thing. So as long as the narrative is strong, the origin story is strong, the belief is strong, and people can see that like you actually enjoy real estate, that will just compound. It has like an incremental compound effect, right? And that's like the beauty of it. I started a new channel the other day for testimonials, and we started it, and the guys were like, my team were like, well, is it going to get engagement? Is it going to get views? And I said, no, but it will just increment. It's the whole idea. It's not like LinkedIn or Instagram where the post just dies and that's the end of it. It will just increment. So you only open up things when you truly, truly need them.
Yeah. Slowly but surely.
If ever, you only do it to de-risk. We talked about de-risk in the beginning. If you truly want to de-risk, you can, but you don't do it for the reason of I need it. And they also have different modalities. It's important to understand that running a podcast isn't for direct conversion. You would run your podcast as awareness and as trust.
It's the same thing as an ad, right? Like if you're running an ad, for example, you're not running an ad, like you can run it for conversions, but you're more likely to run an ad for awareness and then get the awareness, get them into your, not necessarily ecosystem.
Well, for sure, it's ecosystem.
But like even on a rented platform, right? You just need to get them to know you and then they kind of seep in.
Yeah, for sure. And also you do realize one thing with ads is that when you run an ad, it's generally targeted to someone who's come across you some way, in some shape or form previously. So what'll happen is we'll often run an ad on IG, and well, not often. We've only really kind of ramped up last past a couple of months, and when we connect with someone, the first feedback is, "Oh, like I saw your podcast with X 6 months ago, 12 months ago, 3 years ago." But when they're on the YouTube island, they weren't thinking of me in terms of I'm gonna go follow him on IG. It's only until we had an ad running that they saw and they're like, oh, like this guy's not a potato. And I remember seeing his podcast. And then they just come in and check from that angle.
Yeah.
So again, you don't release YouTube videos with the expectation to get Instagram followers. So you need to understand how you interact with social media.
Right.
Because traffic is difficult to get, competition is really high, differentiation is tough. So where are you going to find a way to stand out? Your USP, your mechanism for differentiating as a rep, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner. What is the unique thing you can do? And it can be anything, dude. Like we joke around, and I often say, if I recorded this podcast in a sauna, it would automatically get more engagement because it's just different. Yeah. It's quite literally different, you know? So I'm even considering things like that. I'm considering what are different things we could do, whether we could climb a mountain together and use lapel mics or some shit. Like, what is the thing we can do that's going to be truly like different and unique?
You could do a gym session.
Yes, and I have the microphones now actually as well, so it's actually completely possible.
The one that I've heard for real estate that'll be fun, and I'm planning on actually doing while I'm in the States for a bit, is take my current clients and then have them on a podcast, but do it in one of their new houses.
Ooh, smart, yeah.
Because
what we're doing actually, it was the guys in New York said it to me, is they're going to run a podcast in December. It's going to be like a live podcast, or it's going to be an event, something like this. So they're going to invite every one of their guests to come and then sell tickets for other people to come. And it's kind of like a networking dinner podcast thing. So they'll have interviewed 50 guests. The 50 guests will show up, or let's say like 60% of them. And then people can buy tickets as well.
Tell them to make sure Bob and Ron are there. They would slam it with those two.
Who?
Bob Knackle and Ron Conan.
Oh, yes. I produced those episodes, dude.
Dude, yeah.
We've done all the production for them. Like, so like, you know, majority of our clients are in the real estate space. Yeah. Like literally majority.
Real estate is a phenomenal market to be in. The one thing that I will say is it kind of sucked there for the 4 years with before president switches, because the economy was kind of not great. So there was a low amount of houses on the market, but a ton of buyers. And so you were literally running out of houses.
What's going to happen now, do you think?
My guess, okay, so it's going to vary by area, but my best guess in Wisconsin is we're starting to see a tick up in sellers. And I think it's just going to hit that medium, where like that happy medium, where it's probably 28 days, 35 days on the market, versus before it was selling like that, and you could get an extra $100,000 for your house.
What?
Yeah. It was wild.
That's fucking crazy.
But the problem is there were so few transactions. So there's that weird sense where you have to wait for the market to balance out. Real estate agents, ever wonder why some of your peers are flashing their new Rolexes while you are chasing dead leads? It's not better luck. It's not better skills. It's simple. They're dominating online advertising. But here's the hard truth. Running ads yourself is burning money. MLS restrictions block you. Google's rules confuse you. Your ad spend gets wasted. I know because I've been there. Now, as an SEO agency founder, I've cracked the code. Introducing the Google Ads course built for real estate. This isn't theory. These are my proven ads that you can copy and paste. 25 qualified leads monthly, ready to close buyers and sellers, consistent commissions without cold calling. No wasted ad spend, no guessing, just results from day. Are you ready to stop begging for leads and begging to your sphere of influence? Head to dmrmedia.org/ads and let's get you started today. Yeah, so I just think in Wisconsin it's probably an even out. Nothing crazy like that.
You might need to move that mic closer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah, it's probably just going to even out, realistically.
Yeah, and I think overall it's just going to be like, if America are in the buying mode, like it's not really going to matter if you're in Wisconsin versus like Arizona. It's only going to be if you're in like back ass like North Dakota or something. Does that make sense? But for the most part, like a buyer's market across the economy, it's just going to be people buying in general. Yeah. Right. Just in general. And it's what I often find as well is that it's less about who's buying and more about the perception. Right? Exactly. Because if we're in a perception that, bear in mind, like there was a recession hit in 2021. They claimed on paper it was a recession. But everyone just decided to just kind of ignore it. Like, that's literally what happened. People just ignored it. And then therefore it just kind of didn't happen. Right? And I don't know what it was like in like the 9-to-5 world. And I've seen obviously the tech layoffs come in and all this kind of stuff. But for the most part, people with like an open mind just kind of ignored it. And then the perception kind of changed. Now, I'm not saying that like a recession doesn't exist or it's not going to hit, but as long as like I would think like the term that we're in with Trump right now is going to be more of an exuberance market.
Yeah.
So I think we're just in a more of a perspective shift that he's the type of person that's going to say that everything's going to work, regardless if it works or not. But you kind of need someone with delusional belief like that to just change the people who are 50-50 on the line, right? Because like people like me and you will always say things will work, but you need people that that will swing the pendulum to be like, okay, we need someone like Trump who's just going to say that it's going to work, and then we'll all just kind of get around to that way of thinking. Whereas like the last election was literally someone just being like, this is sad, this doesn't work, this war, this recession. Like the words we say have a huge impact on how we just perceive the scenario. So that's why I think like for the next couple of years, especially in real estate, we say good things. We say that rates are coming down. We say that unemployment is coming down. All these different things that just means, okay, the real estate market's going to move in the right way.
Right.
And I'm not even that close to it. I'm just speaking just from like an observation perspective of how humans interact. Because like you can have the biggest indicator in the world that tracks all these different shit, but if the people in their home don't believe that they can sell or they don't believe that they can buy, it doesn't fucking matter what it says on the screen, bro. Like it literally doesn't matter. And like I've been through recessions, like in 2008 in Ireland, 2006, 2007, 2008. You know, it was crazy. Like most people lost their houses. This is the reason I don't like trust banks and shit in general. But so I've seen that firsthand, and it's like a depression in society. Mm-hmm. So then everyone drops their expectations, everyone drops their standards. Houses drop by 60% in value, and some people bought places, some people did a few different things. But yeah, it's perspective.
It is. It's all perspective. It's also belief in yourself as well.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, for sure.
Even into like entrepreneurship and like real estate, you have to believe in yourself to do it. And so even if it's in a rough market, if you believe in yourself, you can potentially do it.
No, for sure. It's just the fact that like with real estate, there's just so many, there's so much cash required, right? It's such a long-term commitment. It's like Jeff Bezos would put it, a one-way door decision. So one-way door versus two-way door. Two-way door, you can go back on your decision, right? So if you start a new diet and you don't like it, you just go back on your diet. A one-way door decision is something you can't actually go back on. So let's say you put down 50% for a bunch of houses, and now you've committed $2.5-3 million, and then you've mortgaged $3 million over 30 years. That's a one-way door decision. Like you can't undo that. So I think understanding how like literally the universe works, dude, is just a very nice way to be like, okay, do I want to take a step in here as the buyer, as the real estate agent, as the person? Because you do need confidence, but again, like as Hormozy says, you don't want to be screaming affirmations in the window, in the mirror. Like you actually want it backed up with substance, like real, genuine substance. So they're like, okay, this makes sense. Let's go, basically.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the hardest things is getting someone to commit to it because they have to make it feel like it's a good decision. I see that a lot with real estate agents is they can't like they don't sell with conviction.
Do you know what a consistency bias is?
It's not probably if you explain it.
So consistency bias is the action which someone wants to stay consistent with their purchasing decision. So if I was to purchase a home, I want to stay consistent with that decision that I believe that was a good decision. So after that, I will start telling my friends that this neighborhood is beautiful. I will start buying furniture to accentuate the property. I will even start buying a better car to have that out in front. Because I want to be consistent with the decision that buying this, doing this, making this investment is overall a net positive thing. Because people don't want to be inconsistent with their decision-making process. So if you're able to be like, hey, I made this decision, I bought this property, or I think the market's going to work in this way, I think it's going to go in this way, and if I stay consistent with that, it's a biological indicator that they're going to actually go and make that decision. Now, the thing with this is the fact that that's why people can get entrenched in their beliefs.
Right.
Because now they're consistently making the wrong decision, and that's why, you know, it kind of breaks out as a result.
It needs to compound. So one of the other things I wanted to kind of dive really, really deep on is the back of funnel. So taking someone from, we have the podcast, maybe we're getting a little bit of attention. walk me through exactly how you take them, like examples, all of that, from that top of funnel all the way down to buying or selling.
Give me an example of what are they buying, what are they selling, how does that look?
We'll talk residential. So they're buying, say, a $350,000 home for their family, and they found you on a podcast.
They want to buy. Okay. Well, it's very simple, right? They're going to have listings. They're going to have them displayed somewhere for the most part. So it's going to be, you're going to have your podcast on the front. The podcast is only designed for you to be able to bring people into the ecosystem. You will allow those people to be able to explore, find out more about what you do, if they want to take a natural step. So they can see your website, they can see everything from there. They can just have a scan. So the scan is just basically everything on a website. But they will not take the next step. This is a very important thing, is that they're not going to naturally take the next step unless they're super, super keen to buy, which is generally not the case, right? So how we're doing this is, I mentioned to you guys before about having the insane lead magnet, bringing them off the platform straight away. We put them into our system. When they're in the system, we'll then have a way to follow up with them. We'll have a cadence, we'll have a rhythm, we'll have a pattern. If you want to get even more nerdy, when you do have a way to bring them in, you can find out even more data on them. Right? So you can bring them into your system, then you can have another lead magnet running to them to find out more about them. Right? It's like, hey, we want to tailor some stuff for you. Here's how we'll do it. Complete this form to find out like the best places in Wisconsin or whatever. Okay. At that point, then we can almost have like a cadence, a follow-up sequence on HubSpot. We can have the dialers in the back actually doing the outreach, right? People literally picking up the phone calls, but they need to follow up on that process.
Right.
Because most people leave that gap. How do you see that right now?
So right now, what's working really well for me is we do, are you familiar with it? I'm assuming you're familiar with the MLS.
No.
Okay, multiple listing service. It's like Target for houses.
Okay.
Just a list of all the houses. But most websites, what you can do is you can essentially block it. So we bring them to the website, and then we say, hey, you can just browse listings here. After the second listing, it forces you to register.
Okay.
So you register on the website. Basically, it's just a lead magnet. But then you get a self-admission form immediately after. So it's, are you looking to buy? Are you looking to sell? When are you looking to buy or sell? Are you working with anyone else? And just a couple other questions. So you get the self-admission, and then you just run them through an email funnel.
How many times do you think people actually go through that? Like complete it?
A good chunk.
Really? Where are they getting the discovery from?
Mix of SEO, so finding people from the blog posts or just searching up homes in the area. And 2, ads.
From where?
Just running Google ads. So if you look up homes for sale, you'll often see like homes for sale and whatever, and it's an ad.
But at the end of the day, what you truly need is a good rep, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what actually matters here. It's the fact that they might be in America to buy, but someone needs to work that deal. So you need to understand the sales process, the sales cycle, everything that's going to happen for a real estate agent to actually go and make that jump. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's not going to be the first message, the second message. It's not going to be the fucking 10th message. That's reality. It's going to take them a long time to work those deals. So it's almost like a sales 101 lesson. How are you actually managing all your leads? But you've probably seen this. Most guys are not managing their leads properly.
That's one thing that's been the bigger unlock for me is working with bigger brokerages where the guys go, okay, give me the templates and we'll train the agents. So I set up the flows. I give them the templates that are working. They just implement them.
What type of templates?
Flow templates. So email, newsletters, all of that done. I just send them the templates. So I have a flow. I call it the cup of coffee flow. And basically the entire prompt is getting them to sit down for a cup of coffee.
Okay.
And it's 5 touch points in the first 24 hours. And I'd say, yeah, it's aggressive.
But what I would say is if it is aggressive, at least the people who are interested want to work with you. Because I learned from Brooke Hiddink in the e-commerce world, he has 10 oh my God, hiccups. He has 10 testimonials being sent to clients or prospects before they join the call.
Mm-hmm.
And the right people will watch them, the other people won't. They'll just click off and it'll cancel.
Exactly.
How have you seen that be effective?
I would say I'm not using a whole ton of testimonials. To be completely honest with you, we haven't needed it because the cup of coffee is it beats around the bush. It doesn't even frame it in such a way that it's a sales call. Or like a sales meeting. It's a let's get to know each other meeting.
Is there an opportunity though for these reps or these agents to not do a sales call and do communication over email?
Oh, 100%.
But I'm saying like you balance the two, right? There's two different funnels.
Yeah, there 100% you can. I would say with a lot of the brokerages that I work, just since it's Wisconsin, we don't have a ton of volume, and so it's hard to do that. You really have to like nurture the leads because there's not that many. Like I'll give you a good example. In Stevens Point, people only look up homes for sale in Stevens Point like 700 times every month.
Fucking hell. How much homes are there?
Exactly. Like 40 or 50 on the market at any given time, max.
What?
Yeah. So you have to be really, really dialed in with that.
How do agents take over the home? Like how do they scale up their operation, right? Because that's a leaky bucket. Do you get me? They're not going to be able to, if they can't manage one home with content, they're not going to be able to manage 10.
Yeah. I would say it's a lot of them actually just have me come in and then they just close the deals. So we just have them make the phone call and everything else is automated.
So they're contacting the seller. Well, that's the thing, right? So the reason why I asked that is because this is fine, one house, two house, but if you're trying to like really scale a portfolio, you're not going to be able to do that with like one person in the back dialing.
Right.
There's going to need to be a better flow, a better system, a better email sequence to bring them into their ecosystem. Because real estate, there isn't like a low ticket offer, really, is there?
I would say, yeah, I 100% agree with it. And on kind of the phone call thing, one thing that we were looking at is actually hiring Philippine VAs with American accents to pre-qualify.
How would that work?
So
you can do triages like that, yeah.
Yeah. So what we would do is we would hire like one or two. And what we do is we take over, instead of sending it to their CRM directly, we send it to our CRM. And then I'll explain. So we run the CRM and then we have a round robin for all of our list of all of our agents. And we just have the VA call them up, qualify them, and then that's when we send them.
Why wouldn't it just go straight to the agent?
Because then the agent has to call. It's our biggest problem. Agents just flat out aren't calling.
They won't call.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
A lot of agents just, the leads, like they aren't, like they should just call me. It's like, no. And I don't think that's entirely their fault though, is like the worst part. Because Zillow, Realtor.com are pre-qualifying everyone. So they get a phone call from them and it just connects them straight to the buyer or seller.
I don't agree with that. I don't think that's how it should be done. Like, I think that's the problem with this. Is like, people think like it should be handed to them. They think it should be given to them. They think that Zillow should give it to them. Whereas that's not how you should get your leads. That's not how you should work your leads. It's not how you should build relationships. You have to go to them.
Well, the problem...
It could just be an email. Like, we don't really need the call. Like, we just need a touch point.
Yeah.
Right?
That's the problem, right? Like, so many agents have gotten so used to Zillow. Zillow will literally mint them. Like, the worst tier, Zillow will take 40% of your commission. That's 40% of your take-home income.
How do they manage that?
In terms of?
How does Zillow know that this person sold the house to that person?
They, essentially, when you work with Zillow, you work in Zillow's CRM. You can't add them to your own. It's a Zillow lead.
What?
Yeah.
How does that work though? Because you're not because it's like Fiverr, right? Fiverr, people go off the platform all the time.
Yeah.
How can you go off the platform with Zillow? It surely has to be done.
Oh, for sure. I wouldn't doubt it. But Zillow's really, really good at making sure like you don't get their phone number. I don't even think you get their email.
So how do you contact them?
You do it through Zillow. Like they effectively have a monopoly between them, Realtor.com, and like all the other ones are just trash.
Dude, that's so interesting. I'm just thinking of ways to break that system.
That's exactly what I'm doing. Like literally, I have brokerages that are like, yeah, if you make this work, like we'll just drop Zillow. And I have one where they're following up, they're starting to get leads, and they're like, holy shit, it was this cheap the entire time, because we are printing leads for like 40 cents.
What?
And then
But I just don't understand how does Zillow have the moat around the business?
SEO, dude. If you look at Zillow,
No, I know Zillow's appearance, but I'm saying for the real estate agent,
yeah,
how do they not find a way to deplatform the leads?
I'm sure they do, but like, then you can lose your Zillow license, and if you lose your Zillow license, and that's the only way you get leads, like you're fucked.
How do you get a Zillow license? Like, how is there a license attached to it?
So you have to pay Zillow like X amount every month just to get their leads, too. And then as soon as you lose that, then it's done. And you can pay Zillow more to be exclusive in that area.
Yeah. Fuck.
Dude, I'm telling you, it's a really, really rough monopoly. And the only reason they're not a monopoly is because of Realtor.com.
Damn, man. There's a lot of things in tech for real estate that's just like monstrous.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Monstrous. You could. I've with the clients we have, we look at how it operates in the U.S. market, and obviously it's super cutthroat in America, but also how that can be brought into a European market. So there's a lot of guys who will have a Realtor.com or Apartments.com, and they'll create a competitor in Germany, in the UK, and they'll just kill it because their market is just less sophisticated than America.
We were thinking about that, but again, the problem is competing with Zillow in the U.S. market. Like we're gonna be like, we could probably do that in Wisconsin effectively.
No, I'm just saying like you could go into a different country.
Yeah, for sure.
As in from the tech perspective.
Yeah.
You could just build Zillow in the UK, in Ireland. There's obviously variations, but there's shit,
Oh, Bali needs one.
Bali needs one. Bali needs a lot to do with real estate.
Bali needs regulations first.
There's no regulation for real estate here.
Yeah. We were talking with Dana. She should hopefully come on the show later this week too. But apparently the commission here is so high because it's so inconsistent.
What do you mean?
Like they have 10% commission versus like the US is 3%.
Makes sense, man.
Yeah, well, it's super volatile here.
Is it volatile though? Like it's just consistently high.
Oh, I suppose.
Do you get me? Like it's not actually volatile in the sense that like, oh, like this place has gone up and down. Now, yes, you're right, the market could fall out of its ass.
Oh.
But right now that's not happened. In the past 10 years it hasn't happened. It's just gone like up and up and up and up and up. But it's also situational. Like it's different, people are listening in America. It's just the analogy is like, Brickell in Miami is completely different than the outskirts of Miami in Florida. Outskirts of Florida, you could get a place for 40K, but in Brickell, you can't get a place for under like 2 million. Right?
Yeah, that's the weird thing. Like even US, it's so different. Like even within Wisconsin, which is super small, all things considered, it's way different. Like northern Wisconsin houses, you go in for like $150,000, too bad. Whereas like southern Wisconsin, that'd be like 300,000, 400,000.
But it's quality of life though, no?
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah, man.
It's crazy.
Anything else? Any questions? Anything else on that?
I think that's what I had. I don't think I have anything else. Do you have anywhere you want to send people? Specifically your YouTube channel?
No, not really.
Okay, fair enough.
They can search my name. They can find out some more stuff. And the biggest thing though is that, like in the real estate space, you got to understand what is it you're marketing for. Like, are you doing it for leads? Are you doing it for trust? Are you doing it for authority? Like, you need to understand which mode you're operating on, because I see a lot of guys who are